just playing around with some sounds and stuff like that. So this Rumble, once you figure it out, it's not flush with the instructions. At least I haven't been able to find any, but it does have some pretty neat options. Anyway, I started this out, um, still tinkering around, obviously with the lives and stuff like that. Kind of hoping somebody actually sees one for once. But I thought I'd do a tutorial um, for Panzer Leader. I told people on Twitter, it was one of the tweets that actually people got to see for whatever reason. Glad they did. And I told people, I says, I'm going to start, just doing some tutorials, stuff like that. So just start away with that. First, I've got to make sure that this works with the sharing of the screen. I think it will. Or maybe it won't. I don't know. Don't know. Okay, it seems like that's working, I guess. All right, so it's June 29th. The Saint Lo scenario from the original set, original Panzer Leader set. It's here. Let's zoom out. So I talked to one or two people that seemed particularly interested in this. I think they're very new to wargaming. So if you're not 100% new and some of this seems redundant, please bear with me. I just want to start from the beginning so no one's left behind. Panzer Leader came out in 74? There is an attitude that I don't know if the majority of people have, but it's certainly probably so, that war game design or tabletop design is like technology. That if I have a 1984 Buick, the 1996 Buick is absolutely going to be better in all forms or fashions because technology evolves and somehow ideas or technology to people that have this attitude. I don't quite follow it. I disagree. So you'll often hear this thing be called antiquated. I disagree with that. Uh, Antique may be that might be pushing reality because it's friggin' old, no doubt about that. But my first advice is in the wargaming community, they have this odd tendency to push a certain narrative. I don't want to make it sound too, Alex Jones or anything like that. But the theory I have is this: is that you have a finite amount of people that play war games. It's a niche. Within this niche, just like role playing games, there's niche too. Some people only play fantasy. Some people only play, Brosser way or Rule Zero way or whatever the hell. So what they'll do is they'll try to explain to you why the way they play is the best way, or the version or the thought philosophy they have, because they want a larger pool of participants. So take everything with a grain of salt. Of course, that you probably could sit there and go, well, does that apply to you? Well, maybe so. I don't know. Anyway, this game has been under constant revision and refinement since its inception, and that's one of the reasons that when I hear, well, that's such an antiquated, is it though? Because right off the bat, a month or two at the very most, There was people going, hey, you know what? This rule doesn't make sense. I think I could do this better. Here's a way to add this into the system via the Avalon Hill General. And that continued on, for whatever it comes out to be, 48, 49 years, whatever. My math is probably off in my head, but close to that, something of that nature. So, and people are still making stuff for it. People are making new counters, new maps, new scenarios, and uh, different rules to accommodate and stretch the system from just here Panzer Leader focuses on 44, 45 West Front, and now Panzer Leader can go damn near anywhere in World War II and sometimes beyond. And the same with Panzer Blitz. Some people have Panzer Blitz was the earlier version. There's a series of games: Panzer Blitz, Panzer Leader, and one called Arab-Israeli Wars that were Panzer Blitz came out in 70, Panzer Leader 74, Arab-Israeli Wars. Don't recollect exactly how many years after Panzer Leader, but anyway, they're considered this trilogy of the system, and now there's a various retro clones, if you will, that expand the thing. So my babbling, I'm literally doing this off the cuff because I'm just trying to get some stuff going. So if you bear with me with a little bit of collecting my thoughts, but the point is that this is the furthest thing from antiquated. It has a long history, yes, but what you were playing in 1974 that was called Panzer Leader, and what people playing in 2024 are playing, and technically, it's a world of difference. Here, we're going to start with the basics. We're going to use predominantly the original set of rules, just as a starting point. So, I guess the first thing to mention, I told this to one of the individuals I was talking to, that time scale, ground scale, unit scale is kind of an ID tag for these things. In this case, the time scale is every turn is equivalent to 6 minutes of real time. The ground scale is 1 hex equals about 250 meters. And each unit represents a platoon with, now there's a few exceptions. Some of these custom counters, there's some that represent the next echelon up, which is company, or the next echelon down, which is squad in certain situations. But by and large, they're platoons. And the game comes with an explanation of what that means. I don't have it handy. I probably should have, but you can look in the book and say, okay, a Sherman platoon is 5 Sherman tanks and these many men that crew and maintain that platoon, that sort of thing. So it gives you an idea. Though that isn't relevant really to the game. Like it's just kind of historical and technical information. So, but it's kind of interesting, and that's one of the things about the old war games. They had a little bit of that. So if you're like, well, I've never done this before, I don't even know that much about the tanks or anything like that, they would explain that inside the literature. I'm not going to brief just for the sake of brevity, and I'm not going to brief on every particular piece of equipment, although maybe that might be a video in itself that might be helpful for some people. But and I'm not going to walk you through the rule book. If you want that, we can do that. It might be a good idea. Again, this is just kind of a spitball and just see how to start with this thing and all that. But I wonder if that might seem boring to people and drag on as a video. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of walk you through it as I play out a scenario and show you some things. You know, what would really help is if I could see chat. There we go. So I see somebody on Twitch. Welcome. I wish it would tell me more about who I'm looking at, but I'm using Rumble Studio and it's not flush with information. Feel free to uh, go ahead and chat in the live chat. Pretty sure it works. This is my first time with Rumble Studio, which is something similar to StreamYards or something like that. Anyway, so let's just get right down to it. The first thing is identifying the counters. And what they mean. So let's take a peek at them a little bit. With the zoom in, pardon me. So uh, the green are American troops. The gray are German troops. In the original game, there was no distinction between uh, different branches of service. In some of the add-ins, there's a color, more colors to represent. Like U.S. Navy sometimes had people on the ground with the Army and stuff like that. So, but for now, the green means U.S. Army. The shades are just the fact that the tanks or the vehicles that are on the right side of your screen versus the infantry, which have the boxes and the X's and stuff, were made by two different people, and they did match the shades that great. So um, this is a graphics upgrade, what you're looking at, comparative to the 1974 set. There's been some since then, so I don't have them on Vassal. Nobody does, but it looks a lot better if you print it out and play it. So, but right now it's good enough just to give you an idea what we're dealing with here. So, bear with me while I click on all the little things. Okay, there it is. He readout. So, give you an idea of what you're looking at. The numbers aren't in Vassal. Those numbers, the program identity code system picks, um, isn't a thing. That's just the way people made the graphics in this electronic cardboard version. It's not going to take anything away from gameplay, so you don't really have to worry about that. But the function readout, the Z graph at the bottom, is really um, key to understanding the system and being able to quickly navigate. So you have an attack factor, a range. If you hear me pause, by the way, I just want to jump in real quick and interrupt myself because some people back away from listening to me because they hear long pauses. I'm not. The health isn't 100%, and sometimes I have to kind of grasp for a little bit of air. Excuse me. I hope you can work with me. I hope it's not too annoying or distracting. It's just a thing. Sorry. Um, so the attack factor starts at the Z, the number 14. If you're looking at this example here, is the attack factor. That's the offensive capability of the unit. Then you have the letter in between. The letter represents the type of targets it can engage. We'll get into that just a little bit deeper after I go through everything. The next number is the range in hexes that the unit can fire maximum. The next number, the 6, if you do the Z, you go back down to the left side, is its defensive factor. And 8 is its movement. So those are the main stats you want to deal with. The word Wirbelwind or is just the type of unit that it is. That's the name the Germans gave it if you're not familiar with it. So as far as the letters, you'll see, let's get over to our units over here. You'll see A. That's for anti-material or armor piercing. If you see an A, their target isn't exclusively, but predominantly it's other tanks or bunkers, things of that nature, not soft targets. H are meant to go after soft targets directly, meaning that just shoot right over sights. I is infantry weapons, otherwise known as small arms. M is for mortar. If you look over here, you'll see a C with an I in parentheses. That's to indicate a unit that can carry troops, but has its own weaponry that fit into the infantry scale of firepower. If you see just a C, you've got something that is not armed, but can carry cargo and or people, like the trucks over here. So let's go and take a look at, well, first let's hit the right button. Always helps to do that. So if we go here to the weapons effectiveness chart, you will see the letters that I was just talking about listed here. And they behave differently depending on what target you're shooting at. It affects your offensive capability. So an infantry unit firing at an armored target can only do so in certain situations. Cat attacks only. We'll get into cat here in a second. Armored vehicles, shooting at armored vehicles at less than half range, have double the attack factor, greater than half range, normal the attack factor. If they're attacking something that isn't armored, their attack factor is halved. So these all go different ways. Now, well, I won't get into the evolution. Let's just learn how to play. So that's a portion of your offensive attack. So the rest is going to the combat results table, which is a staple of, that still is wargaming. Some people go, well, it's kind of the antiquated way to do it and all that, but people are still using it. And basically what it is odds ratio table. This is where, if you pardon the shameless plug, this is where our service, a free Kriegspiel game being run by a GM from our company, can save you a lot of headaches and a lot of downtime. What you do in the original game is you take, if you're attacking somebody, you take your attack factor and divide it by the defense factor of the target or targets. In some cases, it's plural, sometimes by choice, sometimes by rule enforcement. So you take that attack factor and divide it by the defense factor. What you come up with is converted into a ratio. And you roll a die and compare the result with what's on the column in the odds ratio. So if my final attack factor, for example, is 12 and your defense factor is 6, then that's a 2-to-1 attack. So I roll the die, and you're rolling low. Some people don't like that, but that's the way this was set up. So the lower the roll, the better. So if I roll a 1, I get a X, which means you've been eliminated, or that target has been eliminated, or that stack if relevant. And that's the very basic crux of combat. There's 2 other results, dispersal and special dispersion, which is a kind of form of suppression and casualty incurring casualties all kind of wrapped into one. And as far as movement, there's a chart for that. A lot of people, I don't like charts very much. Well, here again, shameless plug. If you don't, we can work with you on that on our service, which makes it a lot easier to play games like this. You just sit down and, you know, make decisions for your outfit, for your units. Pardon me, I'm starting to sound like I've got a cold. It's a little bit of allergies is what it is. But anyway, our service makes having to learn a lot of these rules and do these calculations a moot point, something you won't have to do. But movement affects, or terrain affects your movement in that it's more difficult to climb a hill. You'll go slower climbing a hill. If you're a large tank, you'll go slower going through certain parts of light woods. If you're a large tank, you're not going through certain heavier woods. The woods hex have these outlines. Those hard, bold hex outlines represent paths that can't be crossed by vehicular units. And if you're not familiar, there's a presumption that tanks are indestructible and just kind of are lumbering monsters that can overcome anything. And it's not really the case. I could dig up a video I got a couple weeks ago of a Sherman tank at a museum. It's a functional tank, but it's at a museum, hitting a tree. And while it isn't going to dent like your plastic car will, the tree did not go down. So you can be in forest that's too thick to traverse for a tank. That's basically that. So anyway, you go through all these different types of terrain that are depicted on the map with the graphical representation, and they indicate what kind of penalties are incurred on your movement when you go through them, to simulate having to slow down to negotiate obstacles or such. They also have a bearing on combat because they provide different types of cover in certain situations. And then there's roads. Roads are, well, we all know what roads are, and they're to facilitate movement. So to represent that easier kind of flat out speed, you can move much faster on a road in certain situations. And then there's the town hex, and they're 1/2 movement point to enter, and that's to represent that they're a town that's filled with roads. So the other column is about line of sight. And here's another thing that it's the nature of the graphics and the way that the maps are that require somewhat confusing and very special circumstance related line of sight rules. If you're not familiar with the term line of sight, it's just that. It's absolutely line of sight. If you're on one side of a wall and I'm on the other, I don't see you. I don't have line of sight. If you come from around the end of that wall to my side, then I might be able to see you. So we're not going to get into that right away. It's kind of an advanced course. And again, services like mine, I believe I'm the only one as far as war games go, for a very affordable fee, you can have all of that handled. And just and the other benefit to it is you can achieve something you can't achieve. If you sit down with your buddy and play this, there's no way to make it a practical game and hide each other's units when they would be hidden or camouflaged. It just doesn't really work very well. But if you have, and that goes for most of these games, but if you have a service like mine, it's full double blind. Um, so that's another big benefit. All right, let's get into the game itself. Hopefully, I have to keep looking, see if anybody's talking. I don't really have. Oh, Jesus, people. Oh, anyway. Um, Scenarios in these games are called situations. I'm not really sure why they chose to use a different term when 99% use scenarios, but there you go. So we chose this number 4 situation or scenario. It represents an action um, kind of in, well, it doesn't really matter geographically, but you can see where if that kind of thing interests you, you might as well just go ahead and do it. Panzer leader. They do show you where everything is. So if you look um, way over here, it's very general, but there's where number 4 where we're going is, just outside of St. Lo. They're pushing on a very, they being the Americans, are pushing on German. Well, like, I'll just read it to you. Shit. Uh, Elements of the U.S. 116th Infantry Regiment, supported by elements of the 737th Tank Battalion, attacked towards St. Lo against units of the German 3rd Fallschirmjäger, which is just airborne or parachute infantry division, and the 12th Sturmgeschütz Brigade. Sturmgeschütz is a kind of assault gun or tank destroyer, depending. So it's just a little kind of tank without a turret. Anyway, and that was what was going on 29th. Things like this. These are usually historical approximations, these scenarios that came with this game. It's not super detailed, may not even be super accurate, but it's just got the vibe. They're very well done that way. They're not um, they're made to be playable, but yet have the historical taste to them. So, um, setup with this is most of the things you're seeing in Panzer Leader are going to show up in most of these war games in some form or fashion. There's a lot of carryover. You're not, if you buy more than one product, it's not like relearning everything all the time. Some have some unique mechanics, sure, and all that, but there's a lot of things that are commonplace or almost standardized. Um, so, setup. The German sets up first, anywhere on board A. Now, before you, this is the first thing, is not only do we talk tutorial about how to play the game, maybe some decision making, some strategy. The Allied set up second, anywhere on board C. Now, so if you've never done this before and you're like, well, shit, I don't know how to set it up. I mean, what do I do? How do I deploy or set this up so that I have some sort of competency and chance of winning? And we'll start with victory conditions. Now, as much as I love this game, sometimes the victory conditions in these situations weren't always well thought out. So take it with a grain of salt, how you play the originals and how they play out as far as victory and who's succeeding and all that, because it was a weak point to be fit. Not on all of them, but some of them. And when you use scenarios that were made by players, they tend to be better thought out and more balanced. So, but without getting into modifying things, we'll just play it the way it is. So you look at if you're the German, you look at the victory conditions. By the way, if you're playing double blind, you wouldn't have a lot of this information, which makes for a much more interesting game. But yes, I'm going to try to sell myself. It's a business, bro. Sorry. Uh, so the Allied player wins by fulfilling one of the following conditions at the end of the game: either control all town hexes in the town called Grencelis, or control all tall hexes in Grencelis that are east of the stream. I'll give you a visual on that. And then um, several other small towns in the area. So here is Grencelis. There's the stream they're talking about. And then they're talking about these small villages. Kuhn. That's how you pronounce it. So, so basically to show a route of advance towards the German side of the battlefield. All right. And simple as enough as it is, the German wins by preventing the Allies from achieving either one of those objectives. Now, which one is the Ally player going to decide to strive for? And will that maintain inconsistency throughout the 15 turns of the game? Situation might go, well, now that I look at it, I'll never be able to get all of those hexes, so I better change my my stride and go after the other thing. So it leaves a little bit of a guessing game for the German as to how to set up. And the way the Allies set up is just to put themselves in whatever configuration or formation they feel will help them, advance. So, I'll give you some thought process, kind of walk people through a way of thinking this out. This is not necessarily the best way, the only way. It's just walking you through it, and getting an idea. There's a time limit. So traveling cross country without the assistance of roads burns time. The trade-off is it can be safer, especially when you get close to the enemy, and it may give you a chance to react better. But that won't matter if you don't hustle and get your objectives. So there's a trade-off there. And this particular scenario doesn't allow for a lot of maneuver because it's got the very narrow battlefield. But bypassing something can be tricky. And getting across the stream without a bridge. They call it a stream, but you ain't crossing it without a bridge. So in my mind, that's a river. I can cross a stream usually. So, but that's just me. They're referring to it as a stream. But either way, vehicles need a bridge to cross it. Generally speaking, there's things called fords where they can. But so really, from the thought process of the ally, given the situation, and here I'll show you what I'm talking about with as far as crossing things. So shallow stream. Okay, stream hex, wrong way. So, that's one problem with these maps. They do not make these distinctions between the gully and the regular stream. So, but anyway, because they add in that kind of graphic of a bank. So, but anyway, it is a stream on the original. So vehicle units may not enter except at bridges. Other units may only enter on it. And this is just, there's a lot of people that fought hard about this. Um, Other units may only enter on a die roll of 1, 2, or 3. If unsuccessful, they may not move in that movement phase. So it at that point, you it ain't worth it. It really ain't worth it from the Allied perspective to attempt that kind of crossing, because if you can't roll well, you could be stuck there forever. To the point where you go, shit, if I don't give up on this and start moving elsewhere, and the vehicle thing, so you've got to siege the bridges, and that's why I say they call it a stream, but for all intended, if you can't get over it, seems like a river to me. But either way, uh, it's it's fairly logical to assume that uh, the American player is going to come through the town of Grand Salles and focus on trying to seize that objective, as opposed to the other way around, and try to cross the river or bypass it in some way. Sure, there's this, but here's the thing: uh, if you occupy the beginning of the town, they're going to have to fight their way uh, through the town to use the road. They can go cross country um, and bypass it, but that takes a lot of time. So I'm going to show you how you do this. So what you do here is, with an anti-tank weapon, this is an optional rule, but I'm OCD, so I've got to point the things in the direction they should be pointing. It's not strictly necessarily unless you're using optional rules, but I just like the visual vibe, if nothing else. Okay. So at that point, you've got you've made the prospect of bypass a lot more um, tricky, especially if you add a few more of your infantry troops in the same area. You can have 4 units in one hex stacking. So it's not hard to turn this, hey, I'll just go around that way, into, well, that just leads into problems that don't expedite anything. Um, Now, the Allied player can say, well, sure, it's not a sure thing, but it's still a way to, you know, that I want to go. I mean, it's not a guarantee that you're stopping them, but you're not going to watch them just drive right by or something like that if you set it up this way. The other option is your units here, and make it kind of active defense, in that these units can these mobile anti-tank weapons can be put there uh, and move accordingly. They can stay there and hold that flank. If if the Americans don't come that way, they can reposition and maybe support in some other way. Um, Another thing that they can do is kind of play, like a free safety, and be, the last ditch attempt at trying to slow the units down enough that they don't take these villages if it looks like that's the direction they're going, or maybe block the bridges or anything like that. They're mobile, so they can just, be wherever they need to be. Um, as far as mobility with units, if you feel like, hey, this seemed like a good idea, but now the circumstances have changed. You do have transportation units that can move certain things around that need to be moved around. In some of these cases, you'll see a zero on them, and that means they have no inherent movement ability. And show you what this is where a little bit of searching the web. I think you can see this. So, for those who may not be familiar with that's what they're talking about. These things are, they're towed. So, what you're representing is they can't be they can be manhandled to a degree, but not enough that, you can be pushing it down the street like a wheelbarrow or something. So they have to load up onto the vehicles. Now, the way things are loading onto the vehicle, uh, it takes basically a turn for that to occur. And the vehicle that they're loading on has to be in the same hex that they are in. So we'll show you as we play along. What else you have as a German? These are anti-aircraft weapons. Let's let you look at one, what they really look like. So, are there aircraft? No. But you can tip these things up. You can level the barrel and they become a nasty little autocannon that can be a real attention getter. And if you were unlucky enough to get caught in the open by one of these things as infantry, it potentially can tear you up pretty good. So it can be turned on infantry. And then you have the mortars. The mortars require a little bit of planning and communication between other units to get them to fire in some cases. They call that indirect fire. And it's, if you're not familiar with wargaming, I don't think there's anybody that wanted these that hadn't at least played a war game once. So you may be familiar with it, but the if not, the imagery I use is, have you ever seen a war movie where the guy's on the horn? He's got the walkie-talkie in his. I hate to use movies but he's calling in numbers or coordinates. That's essentially what's being represented is some individual observing the target and observing the rounds being fired from the mortar towards the target as to whether they're accurate or not. That's how the very, very basic idea of indirect fire. So you can have some mortar and artillery units that don't establish a line of sight with their target as long as another unit does have that line of sight and and is designated as being a spotter for that weapon system. So now some of the mortars can go either way. They can fire directly or indirectly. So anyway, and then the last thing to get into, well, there's engineers, and engineers have special abilities. They can create and or whatever roadblocks. In certain circumstances, they can be created or removed by engineers. engineers can blow bridges. Um, and there's a procedure for that. They can also clear mines, and there's a procedure for this, fairly lengthy, but minefields can be used in this system, and engineers have the ability to, detect them and disarm them and remove them from the playing field as long as they have the time and support to do it. So, in this instance, what you would be using this engineer for is to try to blow those bridges. Uh, as many as you can before the Americans arrive and limit their potential to cross. I don't know if I've never, I can't recollect being able to get them all destroyed before the time, but perhaps. Um, but anyway, even if you can get one or two, you can kind of channel the Americans and bottle them up and slow them down, and it can have great benefit. So that's what I do with that unit. And the infantry is just that, just dudes with rifles, a couple of machine guns that are defending the position. Um, they don't really have any special abilities or anything like that. So, um, if you notice, the Americans outrange the Germans, and the reason they do is but yes, they both have attack factor of 2 and a range of 2. But you see the little asterisk next to the American 2, and that means that at half attack value, uh, the Americans can fire out double their range. So at range of 3 or 4, they can attack, but it's a 1 attack factor instead of a 2. So something to consider. It's not, well, it's not very effective, but anyway. So I think what I'll do is just make my own defense here, just to show people and get the ball rolling a little bit. Um, oops. I am not going to keep that anti-tank there, though. I'm going to put it here and kind of put my firepower forward as far as that goes, and have these guys cover that area. Again, 4 maximum per hex. Sorry. Anyway, so the Vassal's got some. I mean, this is really great. I know a lot of people will harp on VTT and, well, there's nothing better than face to face. That's fine too. Um, but Vassal's a great tool to do solo gaming, to just kind of learn things without having to pull out the box that you bought and set it up and make a giant mess that you have to clean up. You don't have to. You can play the game. You always hear a lot of complaints about, well, I used to war game, but it took too much time, and I had to, I'd set it up and I never finished the game, and then I have to take the game down because my wife wanted the kitchen table so she could set it for dinner, or blah 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 blah. So, um, With the electronic cardboard like this, there's just it's just like every other file on your computer. It can be saved and recalled later, and it'll so saves a lot of problems in that way. And a lot of these, this one obviously is not one of them, though it used to be, and I hopefully somebody will fix it again. I wish I knew how to work with the system better as far as programming, but in the past, uh, it would auto load the setups. Of course, to be fair, this one you have a lot of choices, so really, you can't really decide for the player. But um, setting up can be a real pain in the rear. In some of the bigger games, it's almost like, well, I don't want to play that game because it takes an hour and a half to lay out all the chits in the places they're supposed to lay it out. But here it deploys them. And then some people will say, well, at that point, why not just play a video game? Well, um, there was a while where I had friends that, just they felt that the computer was the better alternative for all the usual reasons. It's faster, you don't have to learn the rules and all that sort of stuff. But what you find out, here's what I've had an experience. Played a lot of video games, played a lot of strategy war games on the computer. Some of them have been very enjoyable, but they always have limitations. And and tabletop is only limited by your imagination. When I couldn't afford every cool game, I could make my own up. When I had miniature rules but didn't have enough money to buy enough miniatures, I could use, you know, Matchbox toys, Legos, whatever. Did it look excellent? No, of course it didn't, comparative to having all the cool stuff. But I didn't let it, and I'm not trying to brag or what, but I'm just saying I didn't let it stop me. I let my imagination and I let my desire to want to play and learn how to play override going, well, this is just worked with it. And like one of the great strategy computer war games I played was Steel Panthers. And it was fun. And it was one of the best, like I say, it was really one of the best. But once you play a little bit of it and get over the initial, wow, this is so cool, this is so much fun. Hey, let's try this. Oh, that doesn't work because you don't have enough units. There's always some limitation. You could only have 255 units. You could only have a map this big. It, you run into something. And then the next problem was uh, they started going from automated automated versions of turn-based tabletop games to three-dimensional real-time games. And of course, some people said that was an improvement, and I understand why. But now you're looking at, do I have enough memory? Does everything work? Um, this video card isn't compatible with this, and this driver isn't. Oh man, it never ended, And I bring this stuff up, and I hear people go, "Well, I've never had a problem with my computer and ever." Bullshit. You know, the the further in time you go, especially with Windows, you know, it gets, and even if it runs well, how long does it last before you have to upgrade it? And I just don't have the money for the nor the patience to just constantly have to, So I kind of gave up on it. It's nice, it's relaxed, and then there's the whole online environment. It was never great, but it's apparently gotten worse. With the toxic and just it's a viable choice. Some people, I talked to one guy, he goes, "Yeah, I used to play the games you play." And I go, "Hey, I want to try them again." He goes, "No, I'm never going back. This is so much better." So, okay. You can't, I'm not trying to force you into anything. I disagree. I've, I had my fill of those things. Um, I just think that there's the social angle. There's the planning angle. Although some people could say you have that in PC if you really want to anyway. but mostly it was some people find it frustrating to lay out a bunch of counters for a setup. I found, hey, your video card won't run with this system. That kind of stuff I found frustrating. Anyway, I'm babbling and not moving forward. It's probably boring people. Sorry. So um, the border is clearly defined. We always, just to be gentlemanly, we always, and I think somewhere in the rules it kind of says that too. You don't the the seam hex doesn't count. You have to be at least one off of that. I mean, technically it's board C, but technically it's board A too. So you just you go back one. So uh, that's the way we do it with that. So the half track here is one of the other great things, in my opinion, about this game is, like I said, is the people who have put their time and their uh, energy into expanding it. Now, the half track in this scenario is they didn't they didn't want to make cost effective. You know, if you make too many counters, the price gets too high for the consumers that you're marketing to in 1974. The weight of the box becomes too much. So they decided to not add in every possible unit into the counter mix of the game because they just, but people who are really into World War II are like, no, I want all the stuff. So they started making their own. So they use a half track to represent an armored car, and uh, it's it doesn't really do it justice in certain ways. So uh, fans went and he went and go, no, hell no. That's all messed up. Kind of makes it less of a fun thing when it can't do a vol out right away. But anyway, there they go. They said, no, 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 we're making them. So they went ahead and made all these different armored cars. So um, it's not a major issue here. I'm not going to change it out, but it just kind of need to show you how it expands, and nobody's charging you. There was a couple guys some years ago that were charging for the counters that they made, and most people found that kind of repulsive and wouldn't buy from him. So he just kind of never made it. I don't know that it was illegal. Some people kept saying it was some IP violation. I don't know that that's true, but I guess for somebody who's frugal and like myself and just doesn't is never flush with cash, I appreciated the idea of a community that just shared their work with one another out of the love of the system and such. Um, so to me, it was cool. Some people go, that's commie, but I don't know. It's really that. Um, so you can mount infantry on tanks, and I think I'm going to do that with the Allies. Let me show you how mounting works. And it's just if it wasn't done very often, and it wasn't done riding a tank into battle. The Soviets did it, but it's kind of crazy. But um, hopefully this stupid thing, yeah, there. So, well, that's the crew, but here you go. That's the crew again. We'll get one yet. There. That's the crew too, but I think you get it. People can fit on top. Oh, here's one. Kids, don't try that at home. But yeah, the Soviets did it a lot more, but they've allowed it in Panzer Leader. in Panzer Blitz, they said no, the Germans can't do it because the Germans they they wouldn't do that. They kind of crazy. But anyway, um, it helps to have them riding on the tanks. It can be dangerous. It can cause. You always put what's infantry goes below the vehicle that they're riding on. That's how you indicate that they're riding on it, by putting it below the vehicle that it's riding on. So, and if they're riding, they don't. It doesn't violate stacking. So, but they can only be infantry. You can't put mortars or any of that stuff. They have to be just regular leg infantry if they're going to ride a tank. The tank isn't equipped to. You can't just put all that heavy equipment on there. There's no place to have it. So they don't allow that. But riding with the tanks, gives them a little bit of a. What's going on here? Oh, I'm losing track of myself. The It helps with the situation a bit. So their machine guns. I, I've never really figured this out. There's some explanation, but it doesn't really seem to make sense to me. But the designer felt that accentuating machine guns in Allied units, especially Americans, was necessary, even though they don't really provide any extra benefit. They have no difference in offensive capability over an infantry unit. And in fact, an infantry unit in this game is listed as having its own inherent machine guns on it. So, um, I probably shouldn't get into this kind of stuff because I'm trying to teach the game, not give you lectures about game design. But anyway, that's what those represent. Um, and because they're machine guns and they're heavy, uh, they can't. They don't have any inherent benefit, but there are a few penalties to them as far as mobility and using them. We'll get to that when it comes up. So, um, as far as troops riding on these smaller tanks, I don't know. It's one of these things where you start getting into home interpreted rules. What does the rule say about it? I don't even remember. But we didn't allow it because if you've ever seen, and this is why, I'm assuming you can see this page when I do this. I hope I'm not showing people blank stuff. I apologize if I am. I don't know. I'm still learning this. But that's why. It's a little small. So to be putting 30, 40, no. So we didn't allow it. It has to be a medium tank or heavy tank. But this is one of those games like Monopoly that if you go and play it with people, say at a convention or meet different people, you'll often see that rules, even in the stock game, differ. Well, we don't play it that way because some of them were counterintuitive, some of them were written poorly in the rule book originally, um, and then there's just people that say, well, we just don't like that. So, and that's why you saw so many revisions and player contributions. So this is just a starting point. But if you go, hey, that looks neat, I want to play it with you, I would grab one of the new rewrites of it, um, and jump in from there. So moving right along, 15 turns. In each one of these situation cards, it tells you who goes first, which is typically the attacker, and the allies are the attacker. You have a turn track built in here. It gives you the 1 through 15 that you can count as moves. So, um, oops. Let me just get. Every once in a while, you get that. It's an unfortunate side effect that Vassal doesn't want to center the hexes or the counters into it. They're working on it though. Just like Panzer Blitz isn't that old, obviously, but this system, this program that I'm using called Vassal, um, that's an acronym. What does that acronym stand for? I don't even remember. But anyway, um, it's decades old, but it's constantly revised, updated. Um, I, it's amazing. There's a guy named Uckelman, Scott or Sean or something like that. Anyway, uh, I don't I don't know. I mean, I'm so happy he has it. I don't have any idea why he hasn't thought, hey, after 10 years of working on this thing, maybe we should monetize it, but he won't. And it's got to be a full time job keeping this thing running. I don't even know who pays for the servers that it runs on. Maybe he does. It's incredible, but it is it. He keeps it up to date so that it runs on modern machines. Um, every once in a while, something will come along that'll put a crimp in it. And something well, Windows has implemented this new protocol or something in their operating system. So you'll have periods where it can be a little bit iffy. And okay, that's inconvenient, but this is an incredibly powerful uh, Java program with, I mean, if you're a war gamer, it's just beautiful, and it's absolutely free of charge. And on top of it, you can make things with it on your own. Um, you could make your own war game using this thing, and it's free. So um, anytime something is a little bit hinky, I I cut them some slack. So uh, beginning the game. Let's go and do this. Bear with me a second if anybody's even there to bear with. Just give me a minute. I probably should have done this to start with. So anyway, what we're going to do is we're just going to take a quick look at the rule book itself, so that you can get some bearings with that. And yes, it's in PDF. And no, I don't care. Does somebody own the rights to this? Technically. Do they even know that they do? Not really. And their name is Wizards of the Coast. I'm not a thief. I own this thing. If I never use PDF, 100 other people already have, and it's everywhere. So sue me, block me, whatever. Again, I'm not out pirating movies or people's software or anything like that, but this is damn near 50 years old, and I don't I don't want to hear it. So the IP thing gets a little bit much. Some people get a little too psycho about that sort of stuff. So, and I've known, and I'm not threatening or anything like that. I just tell you this: I've known two instances where people have made accusations about IP infringement because they thought they were experts and publicly attacked people based on their perceived expertise, were wrong, and ended up paying out of their pocket for opening their mouths. So, um, like I say, I hate to sound snotty, but I've had people get real aggro real fast because I'm looking at a PDF or something, and I back off, bro. So anyway, whoops, Adobe making things fun. So here's the sequence of turns. Uh, Sometimes in wargaming you'll hear it called the sequence of play. I don't know why. Again, why this one was. Some of the terms were changed, but whatever. Um, and in the modern version, this is slightly modified for good reason, but that's okay. Combat phase. Allied player executes and resolves minefield attacks. Minefield attacks are what I was talking about earlier. That's the way that they describe clearing minefields. Um, Pretty much any other war game that you ever run into, it'll say clearing minefields. So this is considered I think the first tactical level war game put out. Um, so that may be why some of the phraseology is odd. But anyway, direct and indirect fire. So we covered that. Direct fire is here's my shooter. I have a line of sight to my target. Um, Indirect fire is I have some sort of artillery piece or mortar, and here's my spotter that does have line of sight to the target. And so there's that. Those two types of attacks. Written orders. The game wants you to plan artillery ahead by one turn so that and to keep you honest, they want you to write down uh, where the artillery is going to land. What is the target hex of the artillery for the next turn? Um, Not really a big deal. Airface. The Allies can have air power in this game. The Germans didn't have any planes supplied with it in this game because by 1944 in the West there really wasn't a Luftwaffe. So uh, any airplanes that are flying around resolve their attacks, and any anti-aircraft firing at them while they're flying around um, resolve that attack as well. Then you get into the ground movement phase. Um, Anybody that did not fire gets to move, and then close assault. Now, I brought that up earlier, never did get to it to explain what that is. Um, if you're touching, uh, if your units are literally in contact, in that the enemy is in an adjacent hex, it's called close assault tactics. This can be used by infantry against armored targets, which represent a close assault of a tank using anti-tank rockets, the proverbial old sticky bomb, which really was, if you've seen the movie, that's not a fake thing. I don't know how many people used it. I don't know if it ever needed to be used, but it is in the manual as an improvised munition if need be. Done. That wasn't some bullshit for that movie. That was a real thing. So anything like that, magnetic mines were a thing, but that was really more of a German thing, where you had a mine, an actual mine that had a magnet in it that you'd run up and just attach it to the tank by magnet and set a timer, and it was like a shape charge that stuff like that, and just being super close to enemy infantry, you know, clearing them out of buildings or something like that. and it's got a different combat procedure than the normal combat procedure, which we'll go through if it comes up. And the German player segment is identical to the Allies player segment. Another thing with, if anybody's been listening consistently, my service, taking turns ain't a thing. You're writing orders. It's not that difficult. You turn the orders into the game master, and movement and all that is taken care of simultaneously. It is a completely different dimension than playing a I go then he goes type of turn-based war game. It changes everything as far as the tension, the strategy, the realism, everything. It is so much better. You'll never want to play the old way again. The first time I did it, where it wasn't just me and somebody moving pieces around like it was a complicated chess game, we went to a convention and there was a guy running the whole thing, doing the way we do it now. I had heard of it, but what it was is that we only had a few people playing, and we were younger and didn't have a lot of patience, and we didn't have a lot of time to play all the time. So we weren't going to sacrifice that time we had to play by being the referee for our two friends. Just boring as hell. And so when we went to a place where we could pay a guy, that's what we had to do. Not much, just literally a couple of dollars per person, for him to run it that way. Oh, it was excellent. It was absolutely excellent. And people, again, people go, well, hell, I can do that I can just buy a video game and it has fog of war. I can't see the enemy and all. Yes, but again, even if don't care about the technical things, even if you have a kick-ass machine and all that sort of stuff, there's always limitations. There's always something in a war game that you can't do in a tabletop game. Maybe it's only about one theater of war. Maybe they didn't put all the tanks in it. Whatever. There's a limit that you're going to hit that you don't hit on tabletop. So that's why I love it. But and here's the thing: if you, I don't think anybody who goes, well, I know, like I said, I had one guy I talked to, and I'm like, hey, would you ever think about trying to, want to play a board game with me? No, I used to play those things, and now I only do this. I'll never go back from computers. Okay, then that guy is not going to be sitting here listening to me give a tutorial about board games. So you must believe that there's some inherent value in playing a board game rather than a PC game, right? So if you try the service I keep talking about, you'll even be more amazed. And I don't say that lightly, and it's not just because it's me. It's because the style, that way of playing, is a game changer. Okay. Movement. Movement is calculated in terms of hexes. Basically, each unit expends a movement point, or a number of movement points. So we'll just go through that right now. So let's just start off the game. All righty. Now again, before we start, if you were the Allied player, the American player, and you were playing in my service, none of this. You wouldn't see any of it. You'd be briefed that these units, that intelligence, these are the units that have been defending. At this stage of the war, the unit you're commanding has already fought Germans, has been on the line for some period of time, has been in front of these particular units. So it's not like you don't know that they're out there, but how are they arranged? Where's all their heavy equipment? You may know some of that, you may not. You may have to discover it, use reconnaissance. You go, okay, the third battalion Fallschirmjäger's out there, but where are those Sturmgeschütz and all that stuff. So there's still a little bit of limited intelligence. Anyway, so using is a movement that we're going to use the half track for the recon that was meant to. Started on a road, so each hex that you stay on the road continuously. Let's just read it to you because I'll probably read it better than I can. Explain it. Yeah. Okay. Cost one movement point to enter from another road hex of the same road. So pretty simple. Driving down the road. No, that rate doesn't apply if there are two other units that occupy the same hex of a road that you're moving through, and that's just to represent congestion on a crowded road. So, and what they mean by, let's just, for example's purposes, say it started here. It's not going to get the road bonus if it just does this. It has to drive down the road. So 1/2, 1, 1/2, 2. So 1/2. It's going to stop there. It shows where I moved. That's okay, but oh well. So I'm very positive about Vassal. There is more, and again, I'm very tolerant of the fact that not everything works all the time. One thing, if you play Panzer Leader, whomever the individual games that run on Vassal are made by individuals for Vassal. Think of it as a video game console. Vassal's the console. The game we're playing is the disc or the cartridge that's inserted. And the people who wrote the cartridge may not have kept it updated as the Vassal core program stayed updated. And that way, sometimes things don't work as well in that particular game. One is the movement markers don't work right because it's not updated when they changed it. So it gets a little weird with move markers. That's okay. So because this game was designed with the idea that it wasn't going to have a judge very often, there was some consideration on how to make a pseudo version of Fog of War. And the way that was done has been controversial, but what it is if your unit is in cover, like woods, it cannot be shot at until it leaves that cover or fires from that cover, or one of your friendly units comes in adjacent contact with it. And that's not a bad thing. Well, again, I better not commentate, just learn it. So what it's saying is you don't, the disconnect comes here. You as the player know that it's there. You're going to fight your units. You're going to make decisions based on the knowledge that you know this is here. But in order to simulate some form of limited intelligence, they're preventing you from attacking it by saying your subordinates do not know. They cannot identify or see it because it's obscured by trees. So, but there's no way you can, and it's not that you're dishonest or anybody isn't dishonest. You just can't consciously completely erase the fact that you saw this thing move into that hex from your brain. So it's always going to influence to some degree what you decide to do as the German. And in that sense, it's not masked at all. You just have a handicap of not being able to shoot at it. So if you use our service, you wouldn't know it's there at all until your troops on the ground were in a position to observe it. Now, um, this isn't really a tutorial as much as it's a, you know, I mean, I'm the video's a tutorial, but I am trying to get you to see how the service works. And uh, anyway, I probably should digress. If there's anybody watching, which I don't think there is, they're probably thinking, "Hey, you're just a commercial." Kinda, be honest. Not really lying. Uh, so I'm gonna just try to scrounge some folks up. Hey, if you're watching on Twitter, why don't you drop a comment um, at me some way from Twitter saying, "Hey, I saw you, I watched you," because there's no way for me to know otherwise. So, um, all right, so making them okay. Okay, so he's can't be shot at because of that situation. The walkers will make their advance. Infantry moves one. Now, the funny thing with the infantry is because they can only move one, obviously any penalty wouldn't make any sense because you can't go into negative numbers. So the infantry can just move one no matter what. Now, certain things, they can't move into certain terrain for certain different reasons, but as long as they can fit into the terrain, they can move into it. They're just moving one. So. Now, I spread out the Stuarts, the smaller tanks, for a couple of reasons. Now, let me show you what I mean by the strategy and how things work as far as movement and all that. So, ground hex. Uh, it costs two movement points to enter even open ground with a truck. So, if you start getting into hills or something like that, or trees, they might not fit at all. Cost trucks two to enter the trees. Um, they can get left behind. So, and it doesn't seem like, I mean, it's half. So if seven instead of 14 doesn't seem like much until you spend a lot of time in that direction or off the road with a truck or something like that. So as far as getting units here and there. Anyway, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Or like 6. I might do that. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So here's you got a little line of sight and range. The original game came with little sticks that you'd use as like a straight edge um, to determine line of sight. You could use that instead of the incredibly obnoxious. Here, I'll give you an idea. It really is the weak part of the game. It's necessary because of the way printing, like I said, all that works. We'll just show you as far as line of sight and hills. You actually need a table. It made things a little bit easier. So if this is for if you're on the ground and you're looking at a slope hex. A brown hex, no line of sight. It tells you. It just gets nuts. So you it really is kind of confusing and complicated the way they do that. So I don't think it'll come up here, but you'll see. But anyway, this anti-tank does have line of sight. Now you have a rule in this game called opportunity fire, and that allows the defender, the German in this case, the non-phasing player, if you will, to shoot at moving targets. Now, in order to do this, you have to have been in front of a target for particular, like in the line of sight for a particular amount of time. So, coming from this hex here to this hex, not in line of sight on this hex, in line of sight here. So, let's just explain the rules. So, in order to get the shot off, explain why it's doing this. Um, there has to be a certain amount of hexes traveled in the line of sight of your gun before you can shoot. This is an optional rule. So I could see going, well, let's just forget it and go on to the basic, but really, it really shouldn't be. 1/4 rounded down of its movement allowance continuously in a line of sight of a friendly, meaning one of your units. It may be attacked by that using direct fire. So, and this is why people start going, these dang games in math. Yeah, it's true. These games in math, it's really true. Um, so anyway, so because he only had one hex as opposed to the 2 or 3 that is required to get the shot off, it doesn't get to shoot. So I could move from here to here and not get shot at. And a lot of people screamed that that was ridiculous and all that. But what was trying to be demonstrated is the idea of bounding, and that you have to lead a target and set up a shot. You know you're not grouse hunting. You just don't snapshot a bird like you could with a shotgun or something like that. Moving an anti-tank gun around to track a target is a it requires some muscle. The thing doesn't traverse like a tank, and so there's a lot to it. And that's what he was trying to do. So it may seem counterintuitive, but it isn't. Um, Now here's the part that I do disagree with, and I understand I'm getting into another thing where I'm might be confusing because I'm changing rules as we're learning them, but I just can't help it. What I would do is I would mark this unit as spotted. Technically, in the base game, it's not spotted, in that you can't shoot at it. So, in like next turn, the Germans will have an opportunity just to fire, and he can't fire it at these 2 units at all, or So it's just like, but anyway, I'm gonna bring these guys here. I have no concern about them getting shot at just yet because they're behind a large wall of trees that is obstructing the view. Okay, and we'll put these trucks up to here as well. One, forgot this guy. Two, three, four. There, he sleeps in the same spot. So that's your movement. One back to uh, line of sight, or line of sight. It's getting late, and I'm starting to screw up on basic words. Getting back to turn of sequence for you. There was no attacks. Um, the movement's done. There's no close assault. So now you go to the German side. So again, um, the rule with hiding in trees becomes more confused. Like there were dots in the center of the hexes, and somewhere in some of these books, I'm just going to confuse you with this, just so you can see. See, these are all the line of sight things. It gets too complicated. I shouldn't bother with it. Anybody got anything to say? I see one person watching me. You got something to ask? Anything to say? I'm always. It's unfortunate. I mean, if you're not a bot, I just want to make sure this thing actually does. I have an overlay for chat, and I mean, is it really working? I'm going to open up another one just to see maybe. Not scanned. Well, by the way things work, it there's technically no shots for the Germans at this point. But let's get into the engineering part. So, to destroy a bridge, an engineer must remain on the bridge hex for 3 turns. It must begin and end 3 friendly movement phases in a row without moving out of the hex. On, on the fourth or any subsequent turn, it must move to an adjacent hex. As soon as it makes this move, the die is rolled for a bridge demolition. So there's no way to completely, yeah, it just wouldn't work. You can limit. I didn't think there'd be a way to seal them all the way off. Plus, some of these hexes have two bridges, but you can corral them by trying. So anyway, so he's going to try. So what I do with this is there, just to note that it's done that. Okay. I'll leave this here in case. So that's it, because the Germans have nothing to do. So turn 2. Now, by the same token that these Americans are hiding in these trees and can't get shots, all the Germans are obscured from view until they either fire or are in contact, because they're in a town, and in the town makes a little bit more sense to me. So anyway, what's going on here? Pardon me while I check my messages. Here. What? Okay. Anyway. Okay. So it's pretty much got nothing to do. Now it's the Americans' turn again. Um, this is why I use. Okay. So he doesn't. This unit does not get to suffer fire because it only did 2. And my math is embarrassingly bad. Round it down. Okay, so it actually does 1, 2, not 3, 2, because you round up, not down. My math isn't bad. My reading is. It said rounded down. I've only played this game 100 times. No one's watching. Okay, so the anti-tanks get a shot, a double shot Um, excuse me. Oh, uh, get a double shot. Meaning, no, a double shot makes it sound like they get two shots. Double in that they're, because of the closeness of the range, it's a 26 attack factor as opposed to a 13. And um, the defense factor is a 5. So there is no other considerations as far as modifiers or such. So that gives, on the math, that gives a 5-1. So anything past 4 is all the same. Don't roll a 6. Rolled a 3. Destroyed the entire unit. Replace with, and there's a reason you do this, replace with a rec marker. And you indicate that that unit is fired. Same shot, only one target, not both. There's 2 tanks in here. You can only attack one. Same odds, same situation. Don't roll a 6. Didn't. Eliminated. Wreck. Okay. A half track will move there as well. Okay. Hmm. Excuse me. I just, sorry to blank out on you, but I have a spam issue. Okay, I've taken care of it. So anyway, this takes care of 2 of the M5s. Now, in order to unload, you need to have you need to expend half of your movement points doing that. So you can drop off and then move half, or you can move half and then drop off. Here's the thing: when you disembark infantry, now they become their own stacking point. So if you, in this situation, they could not all, there's 3 tanks with 3 infantry, they could not all move to the same hex and disembark, or disembark here and then, well, you could do that, couldn't you? Nope, because if you disembark, you have violated it. Now you have, no, you could, because there's only 3 tanks. But if there's 4, you couldn't. So, but they want to get further. So what they're going to do is this. They don't have to, so they're going to go 1. So that's actually half, 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 1, and then 2, and then disembark. And then you put it like that. We'll do that and that. Little stacky problem there. Again, that odd behavior is because there's a failure to update. Right. The rest of the column will move up slowly. If you think this is like there's guys who play this stuff and win like board game awards. So if you think, I mean, I'm not putting every. There'd probably be a better way to do this, a more aggressive way to do it, but I'm just doing a tutorial. So, hmm. Sorry. That's throwing me for a loop. Sorry, it's late. Um, okay. Turn two, German turn. Um, with the infantry, well, I can actually. They're going to do some. Well, what should they do with that? What this does is stands in for writing things down as the original rules called for. If you're playing head to head, these work well. If you were going to play uh, with a fog of war, like my service, you wouldn't really need these. You would write it down and present it to the um, much more tense, much more effective. Um, to do it in secret, but this works just to be, if nothing else, to indicate to the observer, if there are any, that there's artillery coming down from the mortars. And then you indicate the spotter, because they can't do anything else but spot, which I get it, except that it's a whole platoon. And what people did is they made spotter counters instead of using whole platoon, because you don't need the whole platoon to spot. You could have an FO. So anyway, um, and that be it. That's really all they can do here. Change this to 2. That's the end of their turn. Clear the fired. I forgot to mark him fired. I'm too busy being distracted, but okay. Actually, well, let's wait. Okay. All right. Turn 3. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sorry for the long delay. I was just trying to see if there's anybody really there. Um, Units in town are treated as armored targets, no matter what. Units in town must be treated as one combined offensive strength for direct fire attacks. Add +1 to attacker's die roll for all attacks. The units must be spotted. So what that means is there's a loss of effectiveness significantly for firing into a town, which is to represent the hardened, restrictive cover that can be taken by getting into buildings. Now, I should probably open something else for you to see. If you ever have any question about certain, like here, this gives some explanation as to things. You do have to read the key a little bit, though. It's a good reference chart. And it gives you all the explanations as to the notes. So, okay. So anyway, they don't have any attacks here. So I'm going to make this move instead. That new tank that moved in, (26 divided by 9). Okay, got it dispersed. Double dispersed. And click OK. Mark it to first. If it gets hit again in that DD configuration, it will be dead. All right. So close assault. You count all the vehicles that are allowed to, or all the units that are allowed to close assault, which are the infantry, 2, 4, 6. And the defense, you go to these charts. Eight, 9, 10, 13. Good roll on a 1 to 2. That's what the math came out to with the close assault. So that dispersed the whole unit, or the whole stack. And their call for fire is interrupted due to that issue. Scrubbed. Hello on Twitch. Sorry, I was dealing with a bot again. So we're on German turn 3. First thing they will do. Oh, well. Hmm. Kind of caught myself napping. I was too busy being distracted there. All right, so indirect fire. A mortar, half range or less, half of its attack strength. 7. That's a 2-to-1. The roll was a 3. Double dispersed. Double dispersal is, the combat results are something that one part of this. Again, I don't want to commentate. So double disperse means it's hanging on by thread. Okay. And the other mortar doesn't get its fire because it lost its spotter. So the next attack is going to. Excuse me. It'll fire the mortar at the half track as well. This because they can do direct fire. That's not going to do very much, if anything. No, nothing. That's it for them. Oh, oh, oh. Oh, Mr. With it is going, doing it ass backwards. Okay, so in the stock game, these dispersals get removed. From the previous. I really prefer, well, it's been a long time. If I seem hesitant, I got a couple of problems. Excuse me. Uh, Locally here. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do, now it's our turn on the shooting, is the two tanks are going to fire into, don't need that anymore, into the dispersed stacked here. And the A is a half, so 5. And the H is, well, it's half too because it's firing. Or is it? Okay. Normal attack strength against armored. Okay. See, here's where it's wrong. Double attack strength versus armored. Okay. So I'm calculating improperly. So it's 22, 14 plus 14 is the, is the attack. And they're going to attack the whole 13. So, and they're lucky. So at a 2-1, they got a 1. They've eliminated that entire group. Okay. He wants to fire at the anti-tank that dispersed. Oh, he can't. See, dispersed. Oh. Okay, dispersed units can't attack. So with that taken care of, the infantry will move in with some tank support. This tank will go here. These two will go here. Now we can make that move. Oops. All right. There's no close assault. German turn. I think I forgot to clear these. So the German, the first, well, oof. Alrighty. Uh, Again, one. Oh, god damn. Let me show you the H. Normal. Seeing that weird? Okay. That particular chart gets changed a lot in the modern version to make it a little bit more, less counterintuitive. But anyway, so the mortar's half, so it's one. The H vehicle or the H anti-aircraft is not half, so it's four. So that's five. Um, and the infantry is not halved. Seven, nine. Uh, I tell you what, they're not going to even take that shot. They're just going to wait. This element here, that'll be a different deal. The H here, well, not get. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, the H will attack the half track, which means a 1-to-1 with a +1 or a -1. See, subtract 1 on all attacks against that. He's been that way. I forgot to clear him. He's not supposed to be that way anymore. Okay, so it's a 1-to-1 with a 4. That's a miss. Okay. The anti-tank can move, but it's probably too late. You can move by doing this. Or, well, if it hits you, if you hit the right button, that helps. Alrighty. So I'm going to have two cat attacks. The first is going to be these two infantry. Against these two here. So that's 12, 4. So it's be a 1-to-3, which isn't going to, yeah, nothing. Okay. Now this one, the bridge blowing thing went right out the window. So, because it was not well thought out. Why wouldn't you have fired those 7? Oh, because that's the reason. Okay. So the infantry, 2, 4, 6, right? Excuse me, 2, 4, and a 7. And they're attacking that's 18. So that's 27. 18 plus 9, 27. And we have a 7. Now it moves up 1. So when you have a engineer involved in CAT, it goes up 1. So it goes from a 1.4 to a 1.3. And they roll a 5. So nothing. Anybody got any questions, comments? I see two people on Twitch, but I don't see any commentary or anything from Twitch. Let me try this again. Maybe it's the overlay. Oof. Hmm. Any. Jesus Christ.
down for maintenance at 0830. If you're not the commander or a member of the engineering team, stay out until Yan gives the all clear.
Calculating course now, Commander.
Engines primed. All hands prepare for transition to thrust gravity.
Anything I can do? Talk to you later.
I'm here. Standing by.
It's good to go.
I've got the financial report.
All hands, make ready for docking maneuvers. Undocked from junction. We're clear. Now entering synchronous orbit.
Waypoint reached, Commander.
New equipment available. Interface initiated.
Rolling. Coordinates received. Confirmed. Heading out. On my way. Roger that. Copy that.
Our target is within sensor range.
Enemy detected.
Orders. Position confirmed.
Commander? I'm there. Ten four.
Primary target is taking damage.
Vehicle. What's up, boss? On it. One for the scrap heap.
Damage minimal. All weapons disconnected. Enemy mech. Critical damage detected. Damage minimal.
Receiving you. On my way.
What?
Engaging. Hostile eliminated. Waiting for orders. Coordinates received. Orders. Moving out. Reporting one less vehicle.
Annoying. God damn it.
Ready for orders. Affirmative.
Shit, he's fucking annoying.
Engaging with target. Standing by. Rolling. Taking the shot. Ready for orders. Confirmed. Locking on. Systems holding. Waiting for orders. Aye, aye. Reporting critical hit. Commander? I'm there. Roger. Target confirmed. Receiving you. On the move.
Method inbound, Commander. I'll meet you at the LZ.
Vehicle down.
All weapons committed.
Yes, Commander. Moving to position. Affirmative. Hope we can salvage that. Standing by. Rolling. Mech destroyed. Commander. Heading out. That hit something good.
Enemy Enemy mech destroyed. Mission successful.
That work order's complete, boss. Top-notch work, if I may say so.
Lifebuoy watch and lifeboat crew to muster.
Sure thing. It'll take a bit, but we'll get it done.